I never thought my own brother would be the one to destroy me, but I also never imagined he'd be the one to inadvertently hand me the sweetest revenge of my life. This story is long, it's messy, and honestly, I'm still processing everything that happened, but I need to get it out because keeping it inside is eating me alive. Let me start from the beginning, and I mean the real beginning, because you need to understand the dynamic between my brother Derek and me to truly grasp how twisted this whole situation became. Growing up, Derek was the golden child. I'm not being dramatic or exaggerating. He literally could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. He was 3 years older than me, captain of the football team, popular, charismatic, and had this natural charm that made everyone gravitate toward him. I was the quiet one, the bookworm, the kid who spent lunch period in the library instead of the cafeteria. Our parents never said it outright, but I always felt like I was the consolation prize, the backup child they got stuck with after hitting the jackpot with Derek. Our dad ran a moderately successful insurance firm, and from the time Derek was in high school, it was understood that he'd take over the family business eventually. I was never even considered for that path. When I showed interest in the company during my sophomore year of college, Dad literally laughed and said, "That's Derek's future, sport. You just focus on finding something you're good at." That moment broke something in me, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I doubled down on my studies, determined to prove I was worth something, even if it wasn't to them. I graduated with a degree in software engineering from a decent state school, not Ivy League like Derek pretended his mediocre business degree from a party school was, but respectable. I struggled to find my footing after college. The job market was tough, and I didn't have the connections Derek seemed to magically have everywhere. I bounced between a few tech support jobs, a failed startup attempt, and a soul-crushing stint at a call center. Meanwhile, Derek was climbing the corporate ladder at some marketing firm, buying a nice condo, driving a BMW, and reminding everyone at every family gathering how well he was doing. The comparison was constant. Every single holiday, Derek just got another promotion. Derek's dating a model. Derek bought a boat. And then they'd turn to me with these pitying eyes and ask, "So, are you still doing that computer thing?" Like my entire career and life could be dismissed as that computer thing. 3 years ago, things got really bad for me. The startup I'd poured my savings into collapsed spectacularly. My girlfriend of 4 years left me for her CrossFit instructor. I had to move back in with my parents at age 28 because I couldn't afford rent in the city anymore. It was humiliating. Derek, of course, loved every second of it. He'd come over for family dinners and make these passive-aggressive comments like, "Don't worry, little bro, not everyone is cut out for success. Some people are just late bloomers," while smirking into his wine glass. But here's what nobody knew. During those 2 years living in my childhood bedroom, working a night shift at a data entry job that barely covered my car payment, I was building something. Every free moment I had, I was coding, designing, testing. I'd identified a gap in the market for small business inventory management software that was actually user-friendly and affordable. The existing solutions were either too expensive or too complicated for mom-and-pop shops. I was creating something elegant, simple, and powerful. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not my parents, not my few remaining friends, and definitely not Derek. I'd learned that sharing my dreams with my family only gave them ammunition to shoot me down later, so I worked in silence, in secret, fueled by every dismissive comment, every pitying look, every time I was introduced as our other son, while Derek was our son who's doing so well in marketing. After 2 years of development, I finally launched Inventory Simple. I had zero expectations. I thought maybe I'd get a few dozen downloads, make a little side money, and at least feel like I'd accomplished something. But then something incredible happened. It took off. Not overnight sensation took off, but steady, organic growth. Small business owners started finding it, reviewing it, recommending it. Within 6 months, I had 10,000 active users. Within a year, 50,000. The subscription model I'd set up meant I was actually making real money, enough to move out of my parents' house and into a modest apartment. I still didn't tell my family the extent of what was happening. I just said I'd found a better job and moved out. They seemed relieved to have their house back and didn't ask many questions. Derek made some joke about me finally joining the real world. By the time this story really begins, about 3 months ago, Inventory Simple had 200,000 active users across 40 countries. I had a team of 12 people working with me, developers, customer service, sales. I'd moved into a nice loft downtown. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined, but I lived modestly. I'd grown up with nothing handed to me, so I was careful, investing most of it, paying off all my debts, building a safety net. The only indulgence I allowed myself was a really nice home office setup and a decent car, nothing flashy, just a reliable Audi. I still barely saw my family, We'd do the obligatory holiday gatherings, and the dynamic never changed. Derek was still the star, I was still the afterthought. I didn't correct them because, honestly, part of me enjoyed knowing I had this secret success they couldn't diminish. It was mine, untouchable by their judgment. Then came the incident that changed everything. My company had grown to the point where I needed to think bigger about our next phase. We needed real investors, strategic partnerships, maybe even acquisition opportunities. I'd been in talks with a few venture capital firms and some larger tech companies that had shown interest in what we were building. One of those companies was Tightneck Solutions, a major player in the business software space. They'd reached out through their corporate development team about a potential partnership or acquisition. We'd had several calls, and they'd invited me to their headquarters for a formal meeting with their executive team. I was nervous but excited. This was legitimately life-changing stuff. If this deal went through in any of the forms we discussed, I was looking at a payout that would set me up for life, plus the opportunity to scale Inventory Simple in ways I couldn't do alone. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. I wore my best suit, and yes, I'd bought a really nice suit for these kinds of meetings, custom-tailored, the works. I looked good. I looked successful. For the first time in my life, I felt like I looked the part. I arrived at Tightneck's headquarters 15 minutes early. The building was impressive, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screams we're important. I checked in with security, got my visitor badge, and was directed to wait in the lobby while they called up to confirm my appointment. The lobby was massive, with modern art on the walls and expensive furniture arranged in conversation areas. I was standing there, reviewing my notes on my phone, mentally preparing for the meeting, when I heard a familiar laugh. That braying, overconfident laugh I'd heard my entire life, Derek's laugh. I looked up and there he was, walking through the lobby with another guy in a suit, both of them carrying coffee cups and chatting animatedly. My stomach dropped. What were the odds? Out of all the buildings in this city in this moment, Derek was here. I briefly considered hiding, maybe stepping into the bathroom until he passed, but I didn't move fast enough. He saw me. His eyes widened in surprise, then immediately narrowed with that familiar mix of amusement and condescension. "No way," he said loudly, changing direction to walk toward me. "Is that my little brother? What are you doing here?" The guy he was with followed, looking mildly curious. I noticed he had a Tightneck's employee badge. My brain was racing, trying to figure out the connection, but I was also trying to play it cool. "Hey, Derek," I said evenly. "I have a meeting here." His eyebrows shot up in exaggerated surprise. "A meeting? Here, at Tightneck's?" He laughed again, that same dismissive laugh. "What, are they hiring for IT support or something?" I felt my face flush, but I kept my voice steady. "Something like that." The guy with Derek was watching our exchange with interest. He was older, maybe mid-40s, with graying hair and sharp eyes. He had the look of someone important, someone who didn't miss much. Derek clapped me on the shoulder just a little too hard. "Man, small world. I just started here 2 months ago, senior marketing manager." He said it with such pride, puffing his chest out slightly. Then he turned to his companion with this ugly smirk on his face. "Marcus, you'll love this. This is my little brother, the family screw-up. Lived with our parents until he was almost 30. He laughed, and I wanted to disappear into the floor. Our loser relative here was doing data entry last time I checked. Moving up to tech support at Tightneck's though, good for you, buddy. The words hit me like physical blows. We were in public in a professional setting, and he was doing this, actually doing this. I'd experienced his casual cruelty my whole life, but this was a new low. I stood there, frozen, humiliation burning through my entire body. But then I noticed Marcus's expression change. The polite interest vanished, replaced by something else. He was staring at me intently, his eyes moving from my face to the visitor badge I was wearing. I saw the exact moment recognition hit. "Wait," Marcus said slowly. "You're Michael Thornton." He said my name like he was confirming something important. "Yes," I managed to say, confused by his reaction. Marcus's entire demeanor shifted. He stepped forward, extending his hand with a sudden warmth and respect that was startling. "Michael Thornton, founder and CEO of Inventory Simple." The lobby suddenly felt very quiet. I could feel Derek's confusion radiating off him like heat. I shook Marcus's hand. "That's right. I'm Marcus Chen, VP of Corporate Development here at Tightneck's. We have a 2 p.m. meeting scheduled." He was smiling broadly now, and there was something else in his expression, something that looked almost like amusement as he glanced at Derek. "You're the one we've been courting for the past 6 weeks. Your software is exactly what we've been looking for to round out our small business offerings." I watched Derek's face go through a journey. confusion, disbelief, realization, and then something ugly, a mix of shock and anger and embarrassment. It was the most satisfying thing I'd ever witnessed. "I'm looking forward to our meeting," I said to Marcus, finding my voice and my confidence. "I've prepared some materials on the integration possibilities." "Excellent," Marcus said. He glanced at his watch. "We're a bit early, but why don't I take you up now? The team is excited to meet you. We've all been impressed with what you've built." Then, almost as an afterthought, he looked at Derek. "Derek, don't you have that campaign review meeting at 2?" Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Yes, but I thought." "Better not be late," Marcus said pleasantly, but there was an edge to it. "We'll catch up later." It was a dismissal, clear and unambiguous. Marcus gestured toward the elevators, and I walked with him, leaving Derek standing in the lobby looking like someone had slapped him with a dead fish. As we stepped into the elevator, Marcus pressed the button for the executive floor and then turned to me with a carefully neutral expression. "I apologize for that uncomfortable situation," he said. "I wasn't aware you had family connections here." "Neither was I admitted. Derek just started recently, you said." "Yes, about 2 months ago. He reports to our marketing director." There was a pause, and then Marcus added, "Your brother seems to have a very different understanding of your professional situation." I laughed and it came out bitter. "My family doesn't know much about what I actually do. We're not close." Marcus nodded slowly. "I see. Well, for what it's worth, we've done extensive research on you and Inventory Simple as part of our due diligence. Your reputation in the industry is excellent. The software you've developed is elegant and powerful. Your user retention rates are exceptional. And the fact that you bootstrapped the entire operation without outside funding is remarkable. We're very interested in having you and your platform join the TitanX family." The meeting was incredible. I met with Marcus and 4 other executives, including the CTO and the CEO of TitanX's small business division. They'd prepared a whole presentation on why partnering with TitanX made sense for Inventory Simple. The numbers they threw around made my head spin. We were talking about an acquisition price in the low 8 figures, with me staying on as the division head for Inventory Simple, maintaining creative control, getting equity in TitanX, the works. I played it cool and professional, asked the right questions, didn't commit to anything, but inside I was screaming. This was real. This was happening. Everything I'd worked for in secret, all those nights coding in my childhood bedroom while Derek was out living his successful life, it had led to this. The meeting ran long, over 2 hours. When it finally wrapped up, Marcus walked me back to the elevator personally. "We'll have our legal team draw up the preliminary term sheet based on our discussion today," he said as we shook hands again. "I hope you'll give this serious consideration, Michael. We'd be lucky to have you here." As the elevator descended, I felt like I was floating, but that feeling evaporated the moment the doors opened to the lobby. Derek was there, clearly waiting. His face was stormy. "We need to talk," he said the second he saw me. I considered just walking past him, but curiosity won. "Okay." He led me outside to a courtyard area away from the main entrance, where there were a few benches and some landscaping. The moment we were relatively alone, he turned on me. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. "Since when do you have a company? Since when are you meeting with VPs?" "Since I built something successful," I said calmly. "Not that you ever asked what I was actually doing." "Inventory Simple." He said it like the name was offensive. I've never even heard of it. "It's business-to-business software, not really your sector." I was enjoying this more than I should have been. "We have over 200,000 active users in 40 countries. His face was getting red. "And you never thought to mention this, to family. You let us all think you were some loser struggling to find yourself." "You thought I was a loser," I corrected. "I never said that. You assumed it, and I didn't bother correcting you because honestly, Derek, why would I? So you could take credit somehow, so Dad could compare us even more. I built this myself, without family money, without connections, without anyone's help. It's mine." "This is unbelievable," he sputtered. "Do you know how embarrassing that was for me in there? My boss now thinks my brother is some big shot, and I called you a loser right in front of him." "Yeah," I said flatly. "That was really stupid of you. Maybe don't publicly humiliate people in professional settings, just a thought." He ran his hand through his hair, and I could see him thinking, recalculating. Then his expression changed, softened into something that might have looked like contrition if I didn't know him so well. "Look, I'm sorry about that comment. I was just joking around, you know how I am. I didn't know you were actually meeting with the executives." He forced a laugh. "This is actually pretty cool, little bro. We could both end up working here together, like a family thing." And there it was, the pivot, the moment he realized I might actually be useful to him. Maybe, I said noncommittally. I haven't decided anything yet. Well, when you do decide to come on board, let me know. I can show you the ropes, introduce you around. It'll be great. He was already spinning it in his head, I could tell, already figuring out how to use my situation to his advantage. I just smiled and told him I had to go. I didn't trust myself to say more without telling him exactly what I thought of him. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment in the lobby over and over. The look on Derek's face when Marcus recognized me. The pathetic attempt to backtrack and act like we were buddies. But also I kept thinking about the bigger picture. Did I want to work at the same company as Derek? Would he try to take credit for my work? Would this become another thing where he somehow made himself the star and I became a footnote? I called my lawyer the next morning, a sharp woman named Patricia who'd been helping me with contracts and business stuff for the past year. So this Titanex deal, she said after I'd explained the situation. The numbers sound good, but how do you feel about the acquisition? Is this what you want? That was the question, wasn't it? I'd built Inventory Simple myself. It was my baby, but I also knew I couldn't scale it to the next level alone. I needed resources, infrastructure, support, and the money they were offering would change my life. I think so, I said, but there's the complication with my brother. The one who called you a loser in their lobby. That's the one. Patricia was quiet for a moment. You know, you have leverage here. If you're concerned about the working relationship, you can negotiate protections, reporting structures, department separation, whatever you need to feel comfortable. That got me thinking. I had leverage, real leverage. Titanex wanted Inventory Simple badly enough to throw serious money at it. I could set terms. Over the next 2 weeks, I negotiated the hell out of that deal. Patricia was brilliant, pushing for every advantage. We got the price up to $12 million with performance bonuses that could push it to 15 over 3 years. I would be vice president of Small Business Solutions, reporting directly to the CEO of their small business division, not through marketing. My team would remain intact and independent. I'd have final say on product development for Inventory Simple. And I got equity in Titanex worth another few million based on their current valuation. During this time, Derek called me 4 times. I let it go to voicemail every time. He also showed up at my apartment once, but I pretended not to be home. I could see him through the peephole, pressing my doorbell, looking agitated. I wasn't ready to deal with him yet. I also didn't tell my parents anything. They called for our monthly obligation check-in, asked if I was still doing okay, and I said yes. My mom mentioned that Derek said he'd run into me at his office, and I confirmed that was true. She didn't ask for details, so I didn't offer any. The deal closed on a Tuesday. I signed papers for 3 hours, and then I was suddenly very, very wealthy. Not billionaire wealthy, but never have to worry about money again wealthy. My team was thrilled because I'd negotiated good packages for all of them too, with retention bonuses and equity. We all went out for an expensive dinner to celebrate, and for the first time in my life, I picked up a tab without even glancing at the prices. My official start date at Titanex was the following Monday. I spent the week before setting up my new office, meeting with various department heads and getting oriented. Marcus gave me a tour personally, and I noticed that we didn't go anywhere near the marketing department. He was being tactful about the Derek situation, which I appreciated. On my 3rd day, I got an email from Derek asking me to lunch. I was tempted to ignore it, but I figured we'd have to interact eventually. We worked at the same company now, even if we were in completely different divisions. We met at a restaurant near the office, one of those trendy places with small plates and big prices. Derek was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table and looking at his phone. He stood up when he saw me, smiling broadly. "Hey, there he is, the VP." He said it loud enough that people at nearby tables looked over. He hugged me, which was weird because we'd never been huggers. "Congrats on the deal, seriously. This is huge." "Thanks," I said, sitting down and picking up the menu. "Dad's going to lose his mind when he finds out," Derek continued. "Have you told them yet?" "No, not yet." "Why not? Dude, you just sold your company for millions. That's insane. You should be shouting it from the rooftops." I shrugged. "I'll tell them when the time is right." We ordered food, and Derek spent the next 20 minutes talking about himself, his apartment, his girlfriend, some campaign he was working on. I half listened, wondering why he'd really asked me here. The answer came with dessert. "So I've been thinking," Derek said, leaning forward like he was about to share something important. "We should partner up on some projects. Your software knowledge and my marketing expertise, we'd be unstoppable. I could help get inventory simple in front of bigger clients, corporate accounts, really scale it up. There it was, the angle. The whole point of the acquisition was that Titanex has the marketing infrastructure already, I said carefully. That's their strength. Sure, but I mean really targeted campaigns. I've been reading up on Inventory Simple and I have ideas. We could do this together. The Thornton brothers crushing it at Titanex. He grinned. Plus, it would be good for both our careers to be associated with each other. My marketing wins make you look good. Your product success makes me look good. Mutual benefit. I took a sip of my coffee, considering my response. Part of me wanted to tell him exactly where he could shove his partnership idea, but another part of me, the part that had learned to be strategic rather than emotional, saw an opportunity. Let me think about it, I said. I'm still getting settled in my new role. Of course, no rush, but his eyes were eager. He wanted this. He needed this, I realized. Derek had built his entire identity on being the successful one, and suddenly his loser little brother had leapfrogged him. He was trying to latch on, to ride my success the way he'd always relied on his charm and connections. We parted ways outside the restaurant, and I walked back to the office thinking about power dynamics and family and revenge, because an idea was forming, something delicious and terrible in equal measure. I started to learn more about Derek's position at Titanex. He was senior marketing manager, which sounded impressive but was actually a mid-level position. He managed a small team working on campaigns for Titanex's medium business products. His boss was the marketing director, Linda Chen, Marcus's wife. Interestingly enough, small world. I also learned through careful conversation and observation that Derek was not doing particularly well. He'd been hired with great fanfare, talked a big game in his interviews, but his actual performance was mediocre. The campaigns his team had launched had underperformed. There were whispers that Linda was already regretting the hire, but was giving him time to prove himself. Meanwhile, I was killing it. Inventory Simple's integration into the Titanex ecosystem was going smoothly. User numbers were growing even faster with Titanex's resources behind us. I was getting invited to executive strategy meetings. The CEO mentioned me by name in a company-wide email as an example of successful acquisition integration. And Derek noticed. I could see it eating at him. He dropped by my office with increasingly transparent excuses. Just wanted to see how you're settling in. Thought you might want to grab coffee. Have you thought more about that partnership? I was polite but non-committal. I was waiting, watching, learning the lay of the land. The opportunity came 6 weeks after I'd started. There was a big all-hands meeting where different departments presented their quarterly results. Marketing went first, and Derek was part of the team presenting. It did not go well. The numbers were bad. Customer acquisition costs were up, conversion rates were down. Linda tried to spin it positively, talking about learning opportunities and strategic pivots, but everyone in the room could read a chart. Then it was my turn. Small Business Solutions was presenting, and as the VP, I was the one on stage. I'd prepared thoroughly, and the story I had to tell was good. User growth was up 40% since the acquisition. Revenue was up 30%. Customer satisfaction scores were the highest in the company. I kept it factual, professional, and let the numbers speak for themselves. The applause when I finished was genuine. The CEO stood up and shook my hand in front of everyone, saying this was exactly the kind of success story they'd hoped for when they acquired Inventory Simple. I glanced at the audience and found Derek. He was clapping, but his face was stone. Our eyes met for just a second, and I saw it clearly: hatred, pure, undiluted resentment. After the meeting, Marcus pulled me aside. Fantastic presentation. The board is going to love this in next week's report. Thanks, the team has really stepped up. Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up about something. He lowered his voice. There's been some talk about restructuring the marketing department. Linda's got approval to let some people go, trim the fat, performance-based decisions. I had a pretty good idea where this was going. Is Derek on that list? Marcus hesitated, clearly debating what was appropriate to share. Let's just say that family connection or not, everyone has to pull their weight. I wanted you to know in case it becomes awkward. I appreciate the heads up, I said, but Derek and I aren't close. Whatever happens with his employment is between him and his manager. Marcus looked relieved. Good. I wasn't sure if there'd be any family pressure to intervene on his behalf. There won't be, I assured him. But I didn't want Derek fired. Not yet. That was too quick, too clean. I had a better idea. I went to Linda's office the next day and asked if she had a few minutes. She invited me in, and we chatted for a bit about various cross-departmental projects. Then I shifted the conversation. I've been thinking about marketing strategy for Inventory Simple, I said. We've been relying on organic growth and word of mouth, but with TitanX's resources, we could be more aggressive. I'd like to develop a dedicated campaign. Linda perked up immediately. Marketing directors love when other departments want to increase marketing spend. That's a great idea. I can assign one of my senior people to work with you on strategy. Actually, I was hoping Derek could take the lead on this. Her expression immediately became guarded. Derek, I didn't realize you two were working together. We haven't been, but he's approached me several times about collaborating, and I think this could be a good opportunity. I leaned forward, selling it. Here's my thought. Derek knows the TitanX marketing infrastructure, and obviously he has a personal stake in seeing Inventory Simple succeed because I'm his brother. If this campaign works, it's a win for both our departments. If it doesn't work, well, at least we tried something. I could see Linda thinking it through. Derek needed a win desperately. If this campaign succeeded, it would justify keeping him on. If it failed, she'd have clear cause to let him go, and I was essentially offering to be the one holding the knife. What kind of budget are we talking about? She asked. I'd want to do it right. Real market research, multi-channel approach, $250,000 for the initial 6-month campaign. Her eyebrows rose. That was a significant budget, big enough to make a real impact if done well. And you want Derek as the lead. I want someone hungry, I said, someone with something to prove. That's Derek right now. She studied me for a long moment. You two have an interesting relationship. We're brothers, I said with a shrug, as if that explained everything. She agreed to the plan. The next day, Derek was officially assigned as the lead strategist for the Inventory Simple growth campaign, reporting directly to me for this project. When he came to my office for our first meeting, he was practically vibrating with excitement. This is perfect, exactly what I've been saying we should do. I've already got ideas. We're going to crush this. I'm counting on it, I said. This is a big budget, Derek. A lot of eyes are going to be on this campaign. It needs to succeed. It will, trust me. He was so confident, so sure of himself. Classic Derek. We had weekly meetings to discuss the campaign development. I watched as Derek and his small team put together strategies, creative concepts, targeting plans. And here's the thing, they weren't bad. Derek had always been charming and creative. The ideas were solid. But I was setting him up to fail, and he had no idea. Every week I'd review his plans and suggest changes. Small things at first. Let's adjust the targeting here. What if we shifted the budget allocation there? I'm not sure about this messaging. Let's workshop it more. I was never outright critical, never mean about it. Just thoughtful, strategic suggestions that any good manager might make. Except each suggestion I made was designed to weaken the campaign slightly. Targeting that was too broad to be effective. Budget allocation that emphasized expensive channels with lower ROI. Messaging that was confused and unfocused. Derek, desperate to keep me happy and prove himself, implemented every single suggestion I made. He trusted me because I was the VP, the one with the successful product. Why wouldn't he trust my instincts? His team started to push back. I heard through the grapevine that one of his marketing coordinators had raised concerns about the campaign strategy, saying it didn't align with best practices. Derek had apparently shut her down, insisting that I knew what I was doing and they needed to follow the VP's direction. Perfect. The campaign launched at the beginning of Q4. We timed it for maximum visibility, tied to the holiday shopping season when small businesses were most active. Company-wide emails went out announcing the major marketing push. Linda presented it to the executive team as a flagship campaign. Derek's name was on everything. And I watched it fail in slow motion. The ads ran, but the targeting was too broad. We were paying premium rates to reach people who had no need for inventory management software. The messaging didn't resonate because it was trying to say too many things at once. The landing pages I'd insisted we redesign had confusing user flows that killed conversion rates. Money poured out, results barely trickled in. Derek started to panic by week 3. He came to my office, stressed and confused. I don't understand what's happening. The impressions are great, but we're not getting conversions. I said, looking at his reports with a concerned expression. That is weird. These were your recommendations though, right? The targeting parameters and messaging. Well, yes, but we workshopped them together. You approved everything. I gave some suggestions, sure, but you're the marketing expert. I trusted your judgment on the final execution. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Maybe we need to give it more time. Marketing campaigns can take a while to gain traction. But we both knew we didn't have more time. This was a 6-month campaign, but results needed to show within the first quarter or the plug would be pulled. By week 6, the numbers were undeniable. We'd spent over $100,000 and acquired maybe 300 new users, an acquisition cost of over $300 per user when the average user's lifetime value was around $200. We were losing money on every single conversion. Linda called an emergency meeting with me, Derek, and Marcus to review the campaign performance. Derek tried to spin it, talking about brand awareness and long-term value, but Linda cut him off. "The metrics are clear," she said coldly. "This campaign is underperforming by every measure. We're burning budget with almost nothing to show for it." She turned to me. "Michael, this was your product and your budget. What do you want to do?" I took a deep breath, playing the part of the disappointed manager. I'm obviously not happy with these results. I trusted Derek to execute this campaign effectively, and that trust was misplaced. I looked at my brother. "I think we need to pull the remaining budget and go back to the drawing board with a different approach, possibly with a different team." Derek's face went white. "Wait, just give me a chance to adjust the campaign. I can fix this. I know what went wrong." "You've had 6 weeks," I said quietly, "and every adjustment you've made has only made the numbers worse. I can't justify continuing to invest in a failing strategy." Linda nodded. "I agree. Derek, consider this campaign closed. We'll be conducting a full post-mortem analysis to understand what went wrong." The way she said it, we all knew what that meant, documenting failure for his personnel file. Marcus, who'd been quiet through most of the meeting, spoke up. "For what it's worth, not every campaign succeeds. The important thing is learning from it and moving forward." It was a kind thing to say, but it didn't help Derek. He looked like he'd been punched. After the meeting, he followed me back to my office. "You threw me under the bus in there," he hissed once we were alone. "I stated facts," I replied calmly. "The campaign failed. You were the lead. Those are just facts, Derek. You approved everything, every single decision you signed off on. I gave input as the product owner, but the campaign strategy was your responsibility. That was made clear from the beginning." I sat down at my desk, turning to my computer like the conversation was over. "Look, we all have failures. You'll bounce back." "Bounce back? Linda's been looking for a reason to fire me for months, and you just handed it to her." I turned back to face him. "Is that really my fault? You're the one who hasn't been performing well. This campaign was actually a chance for you to prove yourself. It's not my fault you couldn't execute." He stared at me, and I watched the realization slowly dawn. "You sabotaged me." "That's a pretty serious accusation," I said evenly. "Do you have any evidence of that?" All those suggestions you made. You were deliberately making the campaign worse." I was providing input based on my understanding of the product and the market. If my suggestions were bad, it was your job as the marketing professional to push back. But you didn't, did you? You just did whatever I said because you were desperate to impress me. I let that sink in. That's not sabotage. That's poor judgment on your part. "You son of a bitch," he breathed. "This is because of what I said in the lobby, isn't it? You've been planning this the whole time." I didn't confirm or deny it. I just looked at him with the same expression I'd seen on his face 1,000 times growing up, pity mixed with condescension. "You should probably get back to work," I said. "I'm sure you have a lot of documentation to do for the post-mortem." He left, slamming my office door hard enough that my assistant peeked in to make sure everything was okay. I should have felt triumphant. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? Revenge for every dismissive comment, every time I was made to feel less than, every "our loser relative here" moment. But I felt hollow, empty, because what had I actually accomplished? I'd proven I could be just as cruel as him, maybe more so because I'd hidden it behind corporate professionalism and strategic planning. I went home that night to my expensive loft, poured myself an expensive whiskey, and sat looking out at the city lights, wondering who I'd become. The thing about revenge is that it doesn't actually fix anything. It doesn't heal the wounds or erase the years of pain. It just creates new pain, adds to the pile of cruelty in the world. I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I came into the office early. I had a lot of thinking to do about what came next. I was preparing coffee in the break room when Marcus found me. "Got a minute?" he asked. We went to his office, and he closed the door behind us. "I wanted to talk to you about the campaign situation." "I know it was a costly failure," I started, but he held up a hand. "I've been doing this a long time, Michael. I've seen a lot of campaigns, a lot of team dynamics, a lot of corporate politics, and I've learned to spot when something doesn't add up. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? I had one of our analytics people do a deep dive on the campaign structure, the targeting parameters, the messaging framework, the budget allocation. He pulled out a report and slid it across the desk to me. Every single one of those decisions goes against best practices for this type of product. But more than that, they go against the strategies that you've personally used successfully for Inventory Simple's organic marketing. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. You're a smart guy, Marcus continued. You built a successful company on understanding your market and your users. There's no way you genuinely thought these strategies would work. He leaned back in his chair. So the question is, why did you set up your own brother to fail? I could have denied it, could have played dumb, acted offended at the accusation. But I was tired of games, tired of pretending, tired of carrying around all this anger. Because he deserved it, I said quietly. Because he spent our entire lives making me feel worthless, and I wanted him to know how it felt. Marcus nodded slowly, the loser relative comment in the lobby. That and 1,000 other moments like it over 30 years. I get it, Marcus said, surprising me. Family stuff is complicated, and for what it's worth, your brother's kind of an ass. That comment he made when we first met was completely inappropriate. He paused. But Michael, you're better than this. You've built something real and valuable through talent and hard work. You don't need to tear him down to prove your worth. So what happens now? I asked. Are you going to fire me for sabotaging the campaign? No, he said, because officially you were providing input and Derek made the final decisions. You didn't do anything fireable, just unethical and petty. He stood up, signaling the conversation was ending. But I'm disappointed. I thought we were getting a VP who would elevate the people around him, not drag them down. I hope I wasn't wrong about you. He was right, and that made it worse. I went back to my office and tried to focus on work, but I couldn't. Marcus's words kept echoing in my head. You're better than this. Was I, though? I'd spent so many years being the victim of Derek's cruelty that I'd never stopped to think about what kind of person I wanted to be once I wasn't the victim anymore. Around noon, I got a call from my mother. That was unusual. We usually only talked on our scheduled monthly calls. Michael, what on earth is going on? She demanded the second I answered. Hi, Mom, what do you mean? Derek just called me, very upset. He says you got him in trouble at work, something about a marketing campaign. Of course he'd run to our parents, classic Derek. There was a campaign that didn't perform well, I said carefully. Derek was the lead on it. It's a work thing, Mom, not really something for family to get involved in. Well, he seems to think you deliberately made him look bad. He says you're working at the same company now. Since when? Why didn't you tell us? It's a recent development. Michael, your brother is very upset. He says you're trying to sabotage his career because you're jealous of his success. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it, Derek claiming I was jealous, even now, even when I'd clearly surpassed him. What's so funny? My mother asked, offended. Nothing, Mom. Look, I have to go. I'm at work. Don't you hang up on me. We need to talk about this, Derek says. I really don't care what Derek says, I interrupted. For once in my life, I don't care. I have to go. I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again. I silenced it. But my mother's call had crystallized something for me. The same family dynamic was playing out, just with different circumstances. Derek screwed up, but somehow I was the problem. Derek was upset, so I needed to fix it. Nothing had changed except our bank accounts. I realized I had a choice to make. I could keep playing these games, keep letting my family's dysfunction poison everything, keep being the person who sabotaged campaigns and manipulated situations, or I could be someone different. I thought about what Marcus had said, about being someone who elevates people. I'd never had that in my life. My parents didn't elevate me. Derek certainly never did. I'd pulled myself up alone, with no help, no encouragement, no support, and I'd been so focused on that struggle that I'd never thought about what came after. What kind of person did I want to be with this success I'd built? The answer came to me clearly, not Derek. I didn't want to be Derek, even in victory. I didn't want to be the person who needed to make others feel small to feel big. I pulled out my phone and texted Derek, "Can you come to my office?" He showed up 15 minutes later, looking defensive and angry. "If you're going to gloat." "Sit down," I said, "please." "He's that suspicious." "I owe you an apology," I began. I deliberately gave you bad advice on the campaign. I set you up to fail. Marcus figured it out, and he was right to call me on it." Derek's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "I was angry about what you said in the lobby, and honestly, angry about a lot of things from our entire lives. So I used this campaign as a way to get revenge. That was wrong of me. It was unprofessional and it was cruel." "Why are you telling me this?" he asked suspiciously. "Because I'm going to fix it. I'm going to talk to Linda and Marcus and explain that the campaign failures were due to my bad guidance, not your execution. I'll take responsibility." "Why would you do that? You hate me." "I thought about that. I don't hate you, Derek. I'm angry at you and hurt by you, and I don't particularly like you. But I don't want to be the kind of person who destroys someone else's career over family grudges, even if that person is you." He stared at me for a long moment. "I don't understand you." "I know, and honestly, I don't think you've ever tried to." I stood up. "I'm going to recommend they give you another shot at the campaign, with proper support this time. What you do with that opportunity is up to you." I went to Linda's office that afternoon and requested a meeting with her and Marcus. When we were all together, I explained that I'd reviewed the campaign analytics in detail and realized that my input as product lead had been fundamentally flawed. I'd pushed Derek towards strategies that seemed right from a product perspective, but didn't account for marketing best practices. "I take full responsibility for the campaign's failure," I said. "Derek executed the strategy I pushed him toward. If I'd let him run with his original concepts, the results would likely have been very different." Linda looked skeptical. "That's not how Derek characterized it in his reports." "Derek was trying to be respectful and not throw his VP under the bus," I said. "But the truth is I overstepped. I'm good at building products. I'm not a marketing expert. I should have trusted his expertise instead of micromanaging." Marcus was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What are you proposing?" Linda asked. "Give him another shot, a smaller budget this time, but let him run the campaign his way, without my interference. Judge him on those results." Linda and Marcus exchanged a look. "We'll discuss it," Linda said finally. 2 days later, Derek was greenlit for a revised campaign with a $100,000 budget and explicit instructions that he had full creative control. I was to be kept informed, but not involved in strategic decisions. Derek came to my office after he got the news. "Why did you do that?" "I told you, I'm trying to be better than my worst impulses." "We're not suddenly going to be best friends or something," he said. "This doesn't erase everything." "I know, I'm not looking for that." He nodded slowly and left. The new campaign launched 3 weeks later. Derek's original concepts, the ones I'd seen before I started interfering, were actually pretty solid. The targeting was smart, the messaging was clear, the creative was engaging. And it worked, not spectacularly, but solidly. User acquisition costs came in at a reasonable rate. Conversion rates were healthy. It was a successful campaign, the kind that justified its budget and showed clear ROI. Derek's position at the company stabilized. He wasn't going to be a star, but he wasn't going to be fired either. He'd found his level, a competent mid-level marketing manager doing decent work. As for me, I had a different conversation with Marcus a few weeks after the new campaign launched. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told him, "about elevating people. I want to do that. I want to build something here that's not just about product success, but about creating a good team, a good culture." "That's what I hope to hear," Marcus said. "You've got real leadership potential, Michael, but you've got to let go of whatever baggage you're carrying from your family. That stuff will poison everything if you let it." He was right, so I did something I'd never done before. I started seeing a therapist. Turned out I had a lot to unpack about family dynamics, self-worth, and success. It wasn't a quick fix, but it helped. I also started rebuilding my team's culture with intentionality. I hired people smarter than me in their areas of expertise and actually listened to them. I created mentorship programs. I celebrated failures as learning opportunities instead of reasons for punishment. Slowly, Small Business Solutions became known as one of the best departments to work in at Tightnecks. My relationship with Derek remained complicated. We weren't close, probably never would be, but we were civil. We'd occasionally grab lunch, talk about work stuff, keep it professional. He never apologized for the years of casual cruelty, and I didn't push for it. I'd learned that some people aren't capable of that kind of self-reflection, and I couldn't tie my healing to his growth. I did eventually tell my parents about the acquisition and my role at Tightnecks. My dad's response was, "Well, that's quite something," in a tone that suggested he still didn't quite believe it. My mom asked if it was a stable job, as if I might get fired at any moment. Their inability to truly see me or celebrate my success used to devastate me. Now it just made me sad for them, for what they were missing out on. I invested a lot of my acquisition money in causes I believed in: scholarships for first-generation college students, funding for small business development in underserved communities, things that would have helped someone like me when I was struggling. That felt good in a way that revenge never had. About 8 months after everything went down, I was having coffee with Marcus and I asked him, "Did you know from the beginning, that day in the lobby when Derek called me a loser, did you already know who I was?" He smiled. "I'd seen your photo in the acquisition materials. Yeah, the moment I saw your visitor badge, I knew exactly who you were. And you just let Derek keep talking. I figured you could handle yourself. Plus, honestly, I wanted to see how that played out. Derek had been bragging about his successful family and his connections since he got hired. It was satisfying to watch that bubble pop." He paused. "But I also saw something else that day. I saw how you handled being publicly humiliated. You didn't lash out, didn't make a scene. You kept your composure. That told me something about your character. Even though I later tried to sabotage my own brother's campaign. You're human, you made a mistake, and then you fixed it. That actually told me more about your character than the mistake itself." He finished his coffee. "Nobody's perfect, Michael. The question isn't whether you'll screw up, it's what you do after." That stuck with me. Year after I joined Titnex, Inventory Simple hit 500,000 active users. The platform I'd built in my childhood bedroom was now helping small businesses in 70 countries manage their inventory. I'd built a team of 40 people who genuinely seemed to enjoy working together. I was being invited to speak at industry conferences. Forbes did a profile on me as an example of successful bootstrapped founders. And Derek, he was still at Titnex, still doing his mid-level marketing manager thing. I heard through the office grapevine that he'd stopped talking about his loser brother and had actually started telling people, "Yeah, my brother runs small business solutions here. He's done pretty well for himself." It wasn't much, but it was something. The weirdest part of all of this was realizing that my success didn't actually need Derek's failure. For so long, I'd unconsciously bought into this idea that there was a fixed amount of success in the world, and if Derek had a lot, that meant there was less for me. But that wasn't true. I could succeed wildly regardless of what Derek did. His opinion of me, my parents' opinion of me, none of it actually mattered to my objective success. The only opinion that mattered was my own, and I was finally learning to be proud of myself without needing external validation. I still think about that moment in the lobby sometimes, our loser relative here, the humiliation of it, but now when I think about it, I don't feel shame. I feel something closer to pity for Derek, for needing to put others down, and for my younger self who believed those words had power over me. Last month, I was at another company all-hands meeting. The CEO was announcing the quarterly results, and he specifically called out small business solutions as a model for the rest of the company. "This is what successful integration looks like," he said, gesturing to the slide with our metrics. "Michael and his team have exceeded every goal we set. They're proof that when you empower talented people and give them the resources they need, incredible things happen." The applause was thunderous. I stood up to say a few words of thanks, and as I looked out at the crowd, I found Derek. He was clapping, and his expression was complicated, maybe a little jealous still, but also something else. Maybe respect, maybe acceptance. After the meeting, he actually came up to me. "Nice job up there," he said. "Thanks." There was an awkward pause, and then he said, "Look, I know I haven't been great to you over the years. I don't really know how to. I mean, I'm not good at this stuff, but I'm trying to be less of an ass, just so you know." It wasn't a real apology. It wasn't deep or meaningful or healing. But it was something, and from Derek, it was probably the most I was going to get. "I appreciate that," I said. "We'll never be close, too much water under that bridge, but maybe we could be okay, maybe that was enough." The real revelation came a few weeks later at a family dinner. My parents were hosting, and for the first time, the dynamic was different. My dad actually asked me detailed questions about my work. My mom bragged to the neighbors that her son was a VP at a major company. Derek didn't dominate the conversation for once. And I realized I didn't need it. Their validation, their pride, their attention. I'd spent so many years desperate for it, and now that I had a taste of it, I realized it didn't actually fill the hole I thought it would. Because the hole had already been filled by my own accomplishments, my own growth, my own hard-won self-respect. I didn't need to be the golden child. I just needed to be myself, successful on my own terms, living a life I was proud of. As I drove home from that dinner, I thought about revenge and redemption, about cruelty and kindness, about who we are when we're powerless, and who we choose to be when we finally have power. I thought about the kid I used to be, coding in his bedroom, feeling worthless and invisible, and I wished I could go back and tell him, "You're not a loser, you're not less than. You're building something amazing, and one day you'll stand in a lobby and hear someone call you a loser, and instead of destroying you, it'll be the moment everything changes. And you'll have a choice to become what hurt you or to become something better. Choose better, always choose better." I chose better, not perfectly, not always on the first try, but eventually, and that made all the difference. The story could end there, with neat resolution and lessons learned. But life isn't that clean, and there's one more thing I need to tell you about what happened. About 3 months ago, Linda announced she was leaving Tightnex for another opportunity. The company started looking for a new marketing director, and I was asked to be part of the interview committee since Small Business Solutions worked so closely with marketing. During one of the planning meetings, someone suggested promoting from within. "Derek Thornton has been solid lately," one of the VPs said. "He's been here almost 2 years, knows the systems, has good relationships with the team." I could have torpedoed it with one comment, could have reminded everyone of the failed campaign, or made some neutral-sounding observation that would plant seeds of doubt. I had that power now. Instead, I said, "Derek's work has been good. I think he'd be worth considering along with external candidates." It wasn't a ringing endorsement, but it was fair, and fairness was something I'd decided to value. Derek didn't get the job. They hired someone with more experience from outside, but he did get promoted to senior marketing director, a step up from his current role. He'd earned it through solid performance. When he told me about his promotion over lunch, he seemed genuinely happy. "It's not the top job, but it's progress, you know." "Progress is good," I agreed. "I've been thinking about what you did," he said. "Not the sabotage thing, but after. You could have buried me. You had the power to do it, and everyone would have backed you, but you didn't." "No, I didn't." "Why not?" I thought about how to answer that, because I realized that your failure didn't actually make me feel better. It just made me feel like I'd become someone I didn't want to be, and my success doesn't require your failure. There's room for both of us to do well. He nodded slowly. "I never thought about it like that. I always figured life was a competition, and if you were winning, I must be losing." "That's how we were raised," I said, "but it's not actually true." We finished our lunch and went back to work. It wasn't a Hollywood moment of reconciliation. We didn't hug it out or become best friends, but it was honest and real, and maybe that was better than any dramatic redemption arc. The truth is, this story doesn't have a perfect ending because it's not ended. I'm still figuring out how to be a good leader, how to handle family dysfunction, how to be successful without being cruel. Some days I'm better at it than others. Last week I was CC'd on an email where Derek was praising one of his junior team members for good work on a campaign. He was genuinely supportive and encouraging, pointing out specifically what she'd done well and how it had contributed to the campaign's success. It was the kind of email I tried to send to my team members, elevating them, celebrating their wins. Maybe I hadn't just saved Derek's job that day when I took responsibility for the failed campaign. Maybe I'd shown him a different way of being. Maybe seeing someone choose kindness over cruelty, even when cruelty was justified, had shifted something in him. Or maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, and he just matured on his own. Either way, I'll take it. I've learned that revenge is a poison that hurts the person carrying it more than anyone else. That success tastes better when it's built on your own merits rather than someone else's failure. That family is complicated, and sometimes the best you can do is establish boundaries and find peace with imperfection. And I've learned that the moment someone calls you a loser in front of their boss can be the beginning of your biggest triumph, not because you destroy them in return, but because you prove to yourself that their words have no power over your reality. I'm not a loser, I never was. I was just a late bloomer who needed to find his own path, away from the shadow of a golden child brother and parents who couldn't see past their own biases. And now I'm a VP at a major tech company, running a division that helps hundreds of thousands of small businesses succeed. I have a team that respects me, colleagues who value my input, and a bank account that means I never have to worry about money again. But more than any of that, I have self-respect. I have the knowledge that I built something meaningful through my own effort. I have the peace that comes from choosing to be kind, even when I had every reason to be cruel. Derek called me a loser in that lobby, and Marcus looked at me and saw a CEO, a founder, a success story. But the most important person's opinion was my own, and it took me 30 years to realize that. So if you're reading this and you're the family screw-up, the one who's always compared unfavorably to a golden child sibling, the one who's made to feel less than, know this: their narrative about you is not the truth. Your worth isn't determined by their recognition, and when you finally do succeed, you'll have a choice about what kind of person you want to be. Choose better, choose kindness, choose success that elevates rather than diminishes. Because the best revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. It's becoming someone so fundamentally good and successful that their opinions become irrelevant. That's my story. That's how my brother pointing at me and calling me a loser in front of his boss became the beginning of not just my professional success, but my personal growth into someone I'm actually proud to be. And honestly, that's worth more than any acquisition price, any job title, or any moment of petty revenge could ever be.